SeaWorld is keeping a close eye on a killer whale blamed for killing a trainer. The theme park reports Tillicum is sick with a bacterial infection in his lungs. In 2010, trainer Don Branch.
Emergency response team, what's the situation?
We need an ambulance now. A trainer's been pulled under. The beast tries to pin the trainer under the water. Looks like love to me.
Cow died when the whale pulled her under and she drowned. He's also the focus of the 2013 controversial documentary Blackfish.
What if I told you that on one terrible night, a killer whale looked its trainer straight in the eye and made a choice that would haunt everyone forever? What if I told you that this wasn't just an accident, but something much darker? Today, we're going to talk about Jessica Radcliffe, a young woman who thought she could speak the language of the ocean. But the ocean had other plans. Jessica Radcliffe wasn't like other kids. While her friends were playing video games or hanging out at the mall, Jessica was knee-deep in tide pools, watching hermit crabs scuttle across the sand. Her father was a scientist who studied sea life, and he would bring home the most amazing creatures. Starfish that felt like leather, jellyfish that glowed like magic lanterns, and tiny octopuses that seemed to watch her with curious eyes. But Jessica didn't just look at these animals. She understood them. It was like she had some special gift, some invisible connection to the underwater world. When she was only 10 years old, she could tell if a dolphin was happy or scared just by watching how it moved. Her parents knew she was different. They knew she was meant for something special. As Jessica grew older, her love for marine life only got stronger. She studied hard in school, reading every book about whales and dolphins she could find. She watched documentaries until her eyes hurt. She dreamed of swimming with orcas in the wild. When she turned 19, her dreams finally came true. She graduated with a degree in marine biology and got her dream job at Ocean Haven Marine Park. Ocean Haven was one of those places you see in movies. Giant blue tanks, stadium seating, and crowds of families coming to watch the sea animals perform. For Jessica, it felt like paradise. She was finally going to work with the creatures she loved more than anything in the world. On her first day, Jessica met the star of the show. Her name was Mello, and she was absolutely breathtaking. Mello was a female orca, what most people call a killer whale, though they're actually the largest members of the dolphin family. She was massive, weighing over 6 tons, with skin as black as midnight, and eyes the color of golden honey. When Jessica first looked into those eyes, something magical happened. It was like they recognized each other, like they had been waiting their whole lives to meet. The bond between Jessica and Mello grew stronger every single day. During training sessions, Mello would respond to Jessica's hand signals perfectly. She would leap high out of the water, spinning gracefully in the air before diving back down with barely a splash. She would balance balls on her nose, wave her fins at the audience, and even let Jessica ride on her back as they glided across the pool. Their shows became legendary. People would drive hundreds of miles just to watch Jessica and Mello perform together. The stadium would be packed with families, their faces lighting up with wonder as they watched this incredible partnership between human and whale. Children would gasp in amazement. Adults would wipe tears from their eyes. It seemed like Jessica had found her calling, and Mello had found her perfect partner. Paradise never lasts forever. After a few months of perfect shows, something started to change. At first, the signs were small. Mello would sometimes ignore Jessica's signals during practice. She would float motionless at the bottom of her tank for hours, not responding to anyone. The fish that trainers threw to her would sink to the bottom, untouched. Jessica tried everything she could think of, She spent extra time with Mello, talking to her in soft, gentle voices. She brought special treats, played different music, even tried changing the lighting in the pool area. Nothing worked. Mello seemed to be drifting away, becoming more and more distant each day. Then things got scary. In the middle of the night, security guards would hear loud crashes coming from the pool area. When they investigated, they would find Mello slamming her massive body against the concrete walls of her tank. Over and over again, she would throw herself against the barriers that kept her contained. The sound echoed through the empty park like thunder. The park's veterinarians ran every test they could think of. They checked Mello's blood, examined her teeth, studied her eating habits. Maybe she was sick, they said. Maybe her diet needed to be changed. Maybe it was just hormones. But Jessica knew it was something deeper than that. When she looked into Mello's golden eyes, she didn't see confusion or physical pain. She saw something that chilled her to the bone. She saw anger. Jessica had grown up with a mother who suffered from bipolar disorder, a condition that caused extreme mood swings between happiness and deep sadness. She recognized the signs in Mello. The sudden changes from calm to aggressive, the periods of withdrawal followed by bursts of activity, the unpredictable behavior that seemed to see. 6-ton whale deal with mental illness? The park's management team was getting nervous. Mello was becoming unpredictable, and unpredictable animals were dangerous. They couldn't risk having her hurt someone during a show. After several emergency meetings, they made a decision that broke Jessica's heart. Mello would perform one final farewell show, and then she would be transferred to what they called a quieter facility. Jessica knew what that really meant. Mello would be heavily sedated and kept away from the public forever. Jessica couldn't accept this. She begged the management to give her one more chance. "Let me work with her alone," she pleaded. "No other trainers, no backup crew, just me and Mello. She needs to trust someone completely. Maybe I can reach her." The managers were hesitant, but Jessica's track record with Mello was too good to ignore. They agreed to let her try, but this would be the last chance. If anything went wrong, Mello would be transferred immediately. The night of the final show, Ocean Haven was packed beyond capacity. Word had spread about Mello's retirement, and everyone wanted to see the famous orca one last time. Families filled every seat. News reporters set up their cameras. Social media influencers live streamed to thousands of viewers. Even Jessica's proud parents sat in the front row, beaming with excitement for their daughter's big moment. As the lights dimmed and the music began, something amazing happened. Mello rose from the depths of her tank, like a graceful giant, calm and majestic. For the first time in weeks, she seemed at peace. The angry, erratic behavior was gone. She looked like the Mello that Jessica had first fallen in love with. The show was absolutely perfect. Every trick went exactly as planned. Mello jumped through hoops, balanced on her tail, and performed synchronized swimming routines that left the audience speechless. It was like the troubled weeks had never happened. Jessica's confidence soared as the crowd cheered louder and louder. Maybe she had been right. Maybe love and patience could heal any wound. Then came the grand finale, the moment everyone had paid to see. Jessica climbed onto Mello's back, her arms raised in triumph as she waved the cheering crowd. The orca began to glide across the water, picking up speed as they circled the tank. This was their signature move, the one that had made them famous. Jessica felt the wind in her hair and the spray of salt water on her face. For a moment, everything was perfect. But then, without any warning, Mello dove. Not the gentle, controlled dive they had practiced hundreds of times. This was sharp, sudden, and deep. Jessica was thrown off balance, her arms flailing as she tried to hold on. The crowd gasped, thinking it was part of the show. But Jessica knew immediately that something was terribly wrong. Before she could react, Mello turned in the water with lightning speed. Her massive jaws opened wide, revealing rows of sharp teeth, and she clamped down on Jessica's torso. The stadium fell completely silent. For a few horrible seconds, people thought it was some kind of special effect, part of performance. Then Jessica screamed. Blood began to spread through the clear blue water, like red ink. The silence shattered as thousands of people realized they were watching something real and terrible. Screams echoed through the stadium. Parents covered their children's eyes. People ran for the exits in panic. Jessica's mother collapsed in her seat while her father jumped over the safety railing, shouting her name at the top of his lungs. Backstage, the emergency crew sprang into action. They rushed the pool area with ropes, emergency equipment, and buckets of fish to try to distract Mello. But the massive orca didn't react to any of their efforts. She didn't even seem to notice them. She held Jessica motionless in her jaws, as if she was thinking, as if she was making some kind of decision. Then, slowly and deliberately, Mello began to swim toward the deepest corner of the tank. She dragged Jessica down below the surface, far from the frantic rescue attempts happening above. The water turned darker and darker red as precious seconds ticked away. When the professional divers finally managed to reach them, it was already too late. Jessica's ribs were shattered. Her lungs had collapsed. The young woman who had spent her whole life dancing with the creatures of the sea had been claimed by its silence forever. Ocean Haven Marine Park tried their best to control the story. They called it a tragic accident, an example of unpredictable animal behavior. But the truth was much more complicated than that, because Jessica wasn't Mello's first victim. Years before Jessica ever arrived at Ocean Haven, a man named Daniel Patrick had broken into Marine Park after hours. Daniel was a troubled drifter with a serious drug problem and a history of making dangerous choices. Security footage showed him climbing over fences and sneaking to a facility in the middle of the night. For reasons that no one could understand, he stripped off his clothes and jumped into Mello's tank. Maybe it was the drugs affecting his judgment. Maybe it was some kind of mental breakdown. Maybe he thought he could prove something by swimming with a killer whale. We'll never know for sure because by morning, Daniel's body was floating lifeless in the blood-stained water. The bite marks on Daniel's body were identical to the ones that killed Jessica. Same whale, same tank, same deadly outcome. Two human beings, years apart, both killed by the same massive creature. It was impossible to ignore the pattern. After Jessica's death, marine psychologists and animal behavior experts studied hours and hours of footage showing Mello's behavior. They analyzed her erratic mood swings, her refusal to eat, her agitation before shows, and her violent nighttime episodes. Their conclusion was both heartbreaking and terrifying. Mello wasn't insane. She was depressed. She was also highly intelligent, which made everything worse. Imagine being trapped in a space that's 1,000 the size of your natural home. Imagine being forced to perform silly tricks just to get food. Imagine being surrounded by constant noise, bright flashing lights, and harsh chemicals. Imagine being separated from your family forever, unable to communicate your feelings to anyone who would understand. Orcas in the wild live in close family groups called pods. They have complex social structures and their own unique languages. They can swim up to 100 miles per day in the open ocean. Mello had been taken from all of that and put into a concrete tank barely larger than a swimming pool. Some experts believe that what happened that night wasn't really an attack. It was a complete psychological breakdown, and Jessica was simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. One of the other trainers later revealed something that haunts everyone who heard it. A week before her death, Jessica had been found sitting beside Mello's tank late at night after everyone else had gone home. She was talking quietly to the massive whale, and when asked what she was saying, Jessica replied with tears in her eyes. She told them that Mello was in pain, that she was tired of dancing, tired of performing, tired of living in captivity. Maybe Jessica knew what was coming. Maybe she sensed that her beloved Mello was reaching a breaking point. Maybe she even understood the risk she was taking that final night. But she loved that whale too much to abandon her, even when it cost her everything. Today, Ocean Haven Marine Park no longer exists. The facility was shut down permanently after Jessica's death. Mello was transferred to a secluded marine sanctuary far from crowds and cameras, where she lives under constant supervision. She never performs anymore. She never interacts with humans. Local residents claim that on quiet nights, they can still hear her calling out across the water, but no one dares to get close enough to listen. So what are we supposed to make of this tragic story? Was Jessica's death simply a horrible accident, the result of working with a dangerous wild animal? Or was it the inevitable consequence of keeping intelligent, emotional creatures in captivity for our entertainment? Some people believe that orcas should never be kept in tanks, no matter how well-intentioned the facilities are. They argue that these magnificent creatures belong in the open ocean with their families, not performing tricks for paying customers. Others believe that with enough love, patience, and understanding, any animal can be successfully kept in captivity, and that marine parks serve important educational purposes. But maybe the truth is somewhere in between. Maybe some spirits are simply too wild to cage, no matter how much we love them. Maybe Mello was trying to tell us something that we were too stubborn to hear. Maybe Jessica's death was the price we paid for forgetting that wild animals aren't performers or pets, but complex, intelligent beings with their own needs and emotions. The relationship between humans and the natural world has always been complicated. We want to be close to wild animals, to understand them, to connect with them. But sometimes our desire to control and contain nature leads to tragedy. Jessica Radcliffe paid the ultimate price for this lesson, and her story continues to spark debates about animal captivity, marine parks, and our responsibility to the creatures we claim to love. What do you think about this heartbreaking story? Was Mello a victim of cruel captivity, or was she a dangerous predator who should never have been trusted around humans? Did Jessica see the warning signs, or was she caught completely off guard by her beloved whale's final act? Should marine parks continue to exist, or do stories like this prove that wild animals should stay wild? These are difficult questions without easy answers, but they're questions we need to keep asking. Every time we buy a ticket to see captive animals perform, every time we support facilities that keep wild creatures in tanks and cages, we become part of this story. Jessica Radcliffe believed that love could bridge the gap between human and animal, but sometimes love isn't enough to overcome the fundamental differences between our world and theirs. If this story has made you think, if it's changed how you see the relationship between humans and wild animals, then please hit that like button and share this video with your friends and family. Subscribe to our channel and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest deep dives into the most fascinating and heartbreaking true stories from around the world. We'll be back soon with another incredible tale that will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about the natural world. Until then, stay safe, stay curious, and remember that some of the most important stories are also the most difficult to hear.